Some nights change everything, and Keanu Reeves had no idea this would be one of them. Los Angeles at night was a city of contrasts. The bright neon lights flickered against the inky sky, but in the quieter corners, darkness reigned. Keanu had just left a late-night meeting, driving down an empty road, lost in his own thoughts. The hum of the engine was the only sound accompanying him. He liked driving at night. It gave him space to breathe, to escape the constant noise of the world. Then, he saw it. A lone figure on the edge of a bridge, barely visible in the dim streetlight. The man stood still, his back to the road, staring down at the waters below. There was no hesitation in his posture, only finality. The way he stood, shoulders slumped, fingers gripping the railing, sent a chill through Keanu's spine. He felt his chest tighten. He had seen that kind of stillness before. He had felt it before. Without a second thought, he pulled over, the tires skidding slightly on the pavement. He killed the engine, stepped out, and walked toward the bridge, the cold air biting at his skin, his heartbeat steady but alert. He wasn't sure what he was about to do. He only knew he couldn't drive away. The bridge was silent, apart from the distant hum of traffic below. Keanu's footsteps echoed against the pavement as he moved closer. He kept his pace slow, careful not to startle the man. One wrong move, one sudden noise, and this night could end in tragedy. The man didn't move. His hands were gripping the cold metal railing, his knuckles white under the streetlights. His breathing was heavy, his shoulders rising and falling in uneven patterns. He was fighting something. Inside his mind, inside his heart. Keanu stopped a few feet away, close enough to be heard, but far enough to give him space. "Hey there. It's a cold night to be standing out here alone." The man flinched at the voice, but didn't turn around. His fingers tightened on the railing as if he expected someone to pull him back. "Please, just walk away," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Keanu took another step, his voice calm but firm. "I can't do that." Finally, the man turned his head slightly, just enough for Keanu to see his face. He was young, maybe late 20s, but his eyes looked older, tired. His suit, once expensive, was wrinkled. His tie hung loose around his neck, as if he had stopped caring halfway through his day. His expression was empty, but there was something else beneath it. Something breaking. "You don't understand," the man whispered. "It's over for me." Keanu's jaw tightened. He had heard those words before, and he knew. Sometimes, they were the last words a person ever said. Keanu took a slow breath, steadying himself. He had been in enough movies to know that words mattered. But this wasn't a script. There were no rehearsals, no second takes. He had one chance to get this right. He leaned slightly against the railing, mirroring the man's posture, but keeping a safe distance. "Maybe," Keanu said carefully, "or maybe this is just the worst chapter of your story, not the last one." The man scoffed, shaking his head. "Easy for you to say. You're Keanu Reeves. You have everything." Keanu let out a slow breath, his gaze drifting toward the city lights. "That's what people think," he said, his voice quieter now. "But they don't know about the nights I spent alone, drowning in my own thoughts. They don't know about the people I lost. My best friend, my daughter, the love of my life." The man's grip on the railing loosened slightly. His eyes flickered with something, curiosity, maybe doubt. But he was listening. "You've been here before?" he asked hesitantly. Keanu nodded. "More times than I'd like to admit." and I know what it feels like to think nothing will ever change. But I also know that the worst moments don't last forever. The wind picked up around them, rustling their jackets, but neither of them moved. The city below carried on, unaware of the fragile moment unfolding above. "What's your name?" Keanu asked. The man hesitated. Then, after a long pause, he whispered, "Daniel." Keanu gave a small nod. "Daniel, do you really want this to be the end? Or do you just want the pain to stop?" Daniel's breath hitched. His fingers loosened, just slightly, from the railing. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words. Keanu didn't rush him. He knew that the edge of a bridge wasn't just a physical place, it was a state of mind. And Daniel was standing right there, teetering between giving up and holding on. Daniel let out a shaky breath, his grip still on the railing. "What if I can't fix this?" Keanu turned slightly, his gaze steady. "Then you let someone help." Daniel's eyes flickered with something fragile. Hesitation, fear, maybe even hope. But hope was dangerous when you had spent too long in the dark. It made you believe in things that might not last. The wind howled, sending a shiver through both of them. Below, the city pulsed with life, oblivious to the battle happening above. The cars kept moving, people kept living, and Daniel was stuck between two choices, one that ended everything and one that forced him to keep going. Keanu took a step closer, his voice calm but unwavering. "One step at a time, Daniel. That's all you have to do right now. Just one step." Daniel's knuckles were still white, but his grip loosened. Just slightly. He swallowed hard, his breath uneven. And then, after what felt like an eternity, he stepped away from the railing. Keanu didn't react. He didn't celebrate or exhale in relief. He just nodded, as if to say, "That's it. Just keep going." The moment passed, but the weight of it still lingered in the cold night air. Daniel stood there, his hands shaking, his body still tense, like a man who had just stepped back from the edge of a cliff, but hadn't yet processed what had happened. Keanu didn't move. He knew that this wasn't over. Walking away from the edge was one thing. Walking towards something new was another. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Keanu asked. Daniel hesitated. Then, almost ashamed, he shook his head. "Not really?" Keanu nodded as if he had expected that answer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "Then let's start with that." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Why are you doing this?" Keanu gave a small, knowing smile. "Because once, someone did the same for me." The city stretched. Below them, indifferent to the life that had just been saved. The cars still moved, the people still hurried along, and somewhere in the chaos of it all, Daniel took a step toward something he hadn't dared to believe in for a long time, a second chance. The night air was cold, but the weight in Daniel's chest felt heavier. He had expected this to be the end. Now, for the first time in years, there was an unknown ahead of him. And that scared him more than anything. Keanu walked beside him, not saying much. He knew that silence could be just as powerful as words. Sometimes people didn't need a lecture, they just needed someone to stay. The two men reached Keanu's car. Daniel hesitated, glancing back at the bridge as if he was leaving behind something invisible. Maybe he was leaving, behind the person he had almost become. Keanu opened the door but didn't rush him. "No pressure, just a ride, that's all." Daniel exhaled and nodded. He climbed in, his hands resting awkwardly on his lap. The warmth of the car heater made his fingers tingle, a reminder that he was still here, still alive. Keanu pulled onto the road, the city lights stretching endlessly before them. Daniel didn't ask where they were going. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe, for now, moving forward was enough. The streets blurred past as Keanu drove, the rhythmic hum of the engine filling the quiet. Daniel sat still, his fingers tracing invisible patterns on his jeans, lost in thought. He had no idea what came next. But for the first time in a long time, he wanted to find out. Keanu finally spoke. "You don't have to figure everything out tonight. Just take the next step. Then the one after that." Daniel let out a shaky breath and nodded. Maybe it was that simple. Maybe survival wasn't about having all the answers, just about choosing to keep going. Today, Daniel is still here. He's rebuilding, he's healing, and he's living. And all of this started with one moment, one decision. Because one person decided to stop. And this brings us to the end of this story. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.